The stairwell smelled of oil and dust, the kind that stuck to your throat. The lights flickered as evening rain tapped against the garage roof below. She stood there, small and pale, gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping her upright.
Okay.
Her breath came shallow, uneven.
Right.
Please, the sick little girl whispered, eyes lifting to Mechanic with a courage far bigger than her body. If you carry me upstairs, I'll tell you a secret. He froze, hands still stained with grease, heart tightening at the promise hidden inside her trembling voice. Before the story pulls you further in, I want to pause for a second. Where are you watching this from right now? Your city, your country, your quiet corner of the world. It still amazes me how one moment can travel so far. Drop your place below, and let's feel a little less alone together. Ethan had worked at the garage for nearly 12 years. Long enough for his back to ache every morning. Long enough for his dreams to shrink into something practical and quiet.
It's okay.
Cars came and broken.
Okay.
Cars left fixed.
Everything will be all
People
right.
rarely stayed long enough to be remembered. That's why the girl stood out the moment he first saw her earlier that week. Sitting on the cracked bench near the soda machine, feet dangling, sweater too thin for the cold. She always waited for someone.
It's okay,
No phone,
sweetheart.
no backpack,
Okay.
just those watchful eyes and a cough she tried to hide in her sleeve. That evening, the building was nearly empty. The owner had gone home early. Rain blurred the windows into streaks of silver. Ethan was locking up when he heard the soft scrape of shoes on concrete behind him. That's the stairs, she said, pointing to the narrow metal steps that led to the unused apartment above the garage. I can't do them today. He looked at her more closely then.
It's okay.
The
I've
faint
got
blue
you.
shadows
Okay.
under her eyes.
Everything
The
will
way
be
her
all right.
shoulders shook with each breath. She couldn't have been more than 10. Where's your mom? He asked gently. She's working late. The girl said, a practiced answer, too smooth for someone so young. She said I could wait here.
It's okay, sweetheart.
Ethan hesitated.
Okay.
Every warning he'd learned as an adult buzzed in his head. But something quieter spoke louder, the part of him that remembered being left alone too often as a kid, waiting for someone who was always late. He crouched down so they were eye level. What's your name? Lily. He smiled, though it felt heavy. I'm Ethan. When he stood, Lily swayed slightly. Instinct took over. He stepped forward, steadying her elbow. That was when she
okay.
made the
I've got
request.
Okay.
Not demanded,
Everything
not
will
cried,
be all right.
just asked like it was the most natural thing in the world. I don't usually do this, Ethan murmured, mostly to himself. He glanced at the dark stairwell, then back at her face. But, okay. He lifted her
okay,
carefully.
sweetheart.
She was lighter than he
Okay.
expected. Too light. Her head rested against his shoulder, warm and fragile. Each step creaked under their weight as he climbed, muscles straining, heart pounding for reasons he couldn't explain. Halfway up, her fingers tightened in his jacket. You're nice, she said quietly. Most people don't stop. Ethan swallowed. Sometimes stopping is the easiest thing to forget how to do. The apartment above was small, barely furnished.
It's okay.
A
I've got
couch,
you.
a
Okay.
lamp, boxes
Everything
stacked
will
like
be
someone
all
never
right.
quite moved in. He set her down gently. She sat, breathing hard, staring at her hands. You said you had a secret, he reminded her, trying to sound light. Lily nodded slowly. Her eyes lifted,
It's
glossy
okay,
but
sweetheart.
steady. I come here
Okay.
because my mom doesn't want me to see her cry, she said. She thinks I don't know. Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. She works 2 jobs, Lily continued. She says it's just until things get better. Rain grew louder against the windows. The silence between them felt sacred, fragile. I'm sick, Lily whispered. Like, really sick. Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't speak. He didn't trust his voice.
It's okay. I've
The
got
stairs make me
Okay.
tired, she added.
Everything will be
But I
all
wanted to tell someone before I forget how. Downstairs, the garage door rattled in the wind. Above it, in that dim room, Ethan realized this wasn't just a favor. It was the beginning of something he couldn't yet name, and something he would never walk
It's okay,
away from.
sweetheart.
And just as Lily opened her
Okay.
mouth to say more, the light flickered again, and the sound of footsteps echoed faintly from below. The footsteps downstairs faded, replaced by the hum of rain and the low buzz of the old refrigerator in the corner. Ethan stood near the door, hands unsure where to rest, like he was afraid even the air might bruise her. Lily leaned back against the couch cushions, eyes closed for a moment as if gathering strength from the quiet. When did you find out? He asked softly.
I've got you.
She opened one eye. Last
Everything will
winter,
be all right.
I kept getting tired in school. Then I stopped going. Ethan nodded, though every word landed heavier than the last. He glanced around the apartment. No toys, no photos, nothing that said a child lived here except Lily herself.
It's okay, sweetheart.
Do you stay up here alone often?
Okay.
Sometimes, she said. Mom leaves soup in the fridge. I heat it when I remember. Something inside him twisted. He moved to the small kitchenette, poured a glass of water, and handed it to her. She took it with both hands, like it was precious. If you were standing where Ethan is right now, what would you have done next? Would you have stayed or quietly walked away? Be honest in the comments below. And if this moment is touching something in you, tap like,
Okay.
sometimes that's the
Everything will
simplest
be
way
all
to say
right.
you care. Lily sipped slowly. You don't have to look so sad, she added. I'm used to it. That's not something anyone should get used to, Ethan said, surprising himself at how firm his voice sounded. He pulled a chair closer
It's
and
okay,
sat,
sweetheart.
elbows on his knees.
Okay.
He noticed the way she studied him, like she was memorizing details. The scar near his eyebrow, the grease still under his nails. Adults usually talked past her, but Ethan stayed right where he was. My mom's name is Grace, Lily said. She's nice, just tired. Ethan smiled faintly. My dad used to get tired like that. Where is he now? Ethan hesitated. Gone.
It's
She
okay.
nodded,
I've got you.
as if that
Okay.
answer fit neatly
Everything will
into a
be all
space
right.
she already had prepared. I think grown-ups leave because they're scared, Lily said. Kids don't get to leave. We just wait. The words hit him harder than any confession so far. Outside, a car passed,
It's okay,
tires hissing on
sweetheart.
wet pavement. Life moving on, unaware. Does your mom know you're here tonight? He asked. She thinks I'm sleeping at the neighbor's, Lily replied. I wanted to come back to say thank you for the stairs. He blinked. You didn't have to. I did, she said simply. You carried me like I wasn't heavy. He didn't know what to say to that. Instead, he asked, Do you see a doctor? She nodded. At the hospital downtown. The one with the blue
It's okay.
walls.
I've got you.
Ethan knew
Okay.
it. He'd passed it
Everything
a
will be all
1,000
right.
times. Never gone inside. Do you want me to call your mom? He asked carefully. Lily shook her head. Not yet. Silence stretched again, but this time it felt different. Less fragile. More like a shared breath.
It's
Can I
okay,
tell you the rest of the secret? She
Okay.
asked. He nodded. I'm scared I'll forget things, Lily said. So I tell them to people. That way, they live somewhere else too. Ethan felt his chest tighten. What do you want me to remember? That I like the sound of rain, she said. And that my mom sings when she thinks no one's listening. And that today someone helped me. Downstairs, thunder rolled low and distant. Ethan stood suddenly. I'll drive you home. She
It's okay.
smiled,
I've
small
got
but
you.
certain.
Okay.
Okay.
Everything
He
will be
carried her
all right.
down this time without being asked. The rain soaked his jacket as he buckled her into the passenger seat of his old truck. She hummed quietly as he drove, watching the streetlights blur. When they reached her building, Grace was already outside.
It's okay,
Panic
sweetheart.
etched across her face.
Okay.
She ran to the truck, tears spilling freely now. Lily, she cried. Ethan stepped back as mother and daughter clung to each other. Grace looked up at him, eyes red, voice shaking. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't know what to do. He nodded. You're doing it. Every day. As he drove away, Ethan realized something had shifted. Not fixed, not healed, but opened. He returned to the
It's
garage
okay.
the next
I've got
morning
you.
early.
Okay.
Coffee in hand,
Everything will be all
rain
right.
still clinging to the air. The bench by the soda machine was empty. For the first time in years, Ethan hoped someone would come back. The bench stayed empty all morning. Ethan tried not to look at it, but his eyes kept drifting there
It's
between
okay,
oil
sweetheart.
changes and tire rotations. Every time the garage door creaked open, his chest lifted just a little, then settled back down when it was only another customer, another routine problem to fix. By noon, the rain had cleared. Sunlight slipped through the high windows, warming the concrete floor. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and told himself this was good. Lily belonged at school, or home, or anywhere but a cold garage and a flickering stairwell.
It's okay.
Still,
I've got you.
when the afternoon wore on,
Everything
he
will
found
be all
himself
right.
checking the clock more than usual. He didn't see her again that day, or the next. On the third evening, Grace came instead. She stood awkwardly near the entrance, clutching her purse with both hands like it might float away.
It's okay,
Ethan recognized her immediately.
Okay.
The tired eyes, the softness that had constant worry. "I hope this isn't strange," she said. "Lily wanted me to thank you properly." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." Grace smiled, but it wavered. "She talks about you a lot." That surprised him. "She does?" "She says you listen," Grace replied. "That matters more than you think." They sat on the cracked bench together while the last customer pulled away. Grace
It's
spoke
okay.
carefully
I've
at
got
first,
Okay.
like she was testing whether the
Everything
ground will
will be all
hold.
right.
"She's been sick since she was 6, Grace said. "I try to keep life normal, but some days normal feels like a lie." Ethan nodded slowly. "You're doing the best you can." Grace let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped
It's
for
okay,
years.
sweetheart.
Most people say that and
Okay.
don't mean it. "I do," he said. Silence settled, not uncomfortable this time. The garage lights hummed above them. "Can I ask you something?" Grace said, "Of course." "Why did you help her?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He thought of the stairs, the weight of Lily in his arms, the way she trusted him without knowing a thing about him. "I know what it's like," he said finally, "to be the kid waiting." Grace's
okay.
eyes
I've got you.
softened.
Okay.
She didn't ask for more.
Everything will be
She
all
didn't
right.
need to. Before she left, she hesitated. "Would it be okay if Lily came by sometimes? Just to sit. She likes the sounds here. Says they make her feel less breakable." Ethan swallowed. "Anytime."
It's okay, sweetheart.
From then on, Lily
Okay.
came whenever she could. Some days she stayed only 10 minutes, wrapped in a blanket, sipping juice. Other days she stayed longer, drawing pictures of cars that looked more like smiling animals than machines. Ethan learned which days were good by how loudly she laughed, and which days were bad by how quiet she became. One afternoon, she brought a notebook. "These are my memories," she said, flipping through pages filled with uneven handwriting and crayon sketches. "In case." "In case of what?" he asked gently. She shrugged. "Just in case." He didn't push. Weeks passed. Seasons shifted. The garage felt different now, lighter, somehow. Ethan found himself cleaning the bench every morning, saving Lily's spot like it mattered. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the floor gold, Lily looked up at him suddenly. "Do you ever wish someone had helped you sooner?" The question caught him off guard. "Yes," he admitted, "but I think maybe I needed to wait until I could help someone else." She considered that. "That sounds lonely." "It was," he said honestly, "but it's not anymore." She smiled at that, small and tired but real. "Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? If you have, write yes, and tell me their name below. Sometimes gratitude deserves to be spoken out loud." The next hospital visit came faster than expected. Grace called Ethan from the parking lot, voice trembling. "She asked for you." He didn't think. He just went. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and quiet fear. Lily lay small in the bed, tubes tracing paths along her arms. She looked paler, but when she saw him, her eyes lit up. "You came," she whispered. "Of course," he said, pulling a chair close. She reached for his finger, holding it weakly. "I remembered more things," she murmured. "I wrote them down." "I'm glad," he said, though his throat burned. Grace stood near the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching them with a mixture of hope and dread. "Ethan," Lily said. "Yes, kiddo?" "If I get better," she said slowly, "I want to learn how to fix cars." He smiled, blinking fast. "Deal." "And if I don't," her voice faded then steadied. "You remember me, right?" His chest ached. "Always." Outside the room, a monitor beeped steadily. Time felt thick, like it had slowed just for them. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again, as if afraid of missing something. "I think my mom is scared," she whispered. Ethan glanced at Grace, who was quietly crying now. "She loves you," he said. "I know," Lily replied. "That's why I'm okay being brave." She squeezed his finger once, then relaxed her hand. Grace stepped forward, brushing Lily's hair back, whispering words only a mother could shape. Ethan stayed, sitting still, breathing with them, until the light outside the window shifted from gold to deep blue, and the doctor's footsteps approached down the hall. The doctor's footsteps slowed outside the door, then stopped. Grace straightened instantly, wiping her cheeks with the sleeve of her sweater, like she was ashamed of the tears. Ethan stood too, though his legs felt unsteady, as if the floor had quietly shifted beneath him. The doctor spoke in a calm, practiced voice. Too calm. Ethan caught only fragments at first. Tests, adjustment, monitoring closely. Words that sounded careful, padded, like they were designed not to break anything fragile. Lily watched their faces more than she listened, her eyes moving between her mother and Ethan, reading what they tried to hide. "Does that mean I get to go home tonight?" she asked. Grace forced a smile. "Not tonight, baby, but soon." Lily nodded, accepting it with a grace that didn't belong to a child her age. "That's okay," she said. "Hospitals have better pudding." The doctor gave a small smile, said he'd be back later, and left them alone again. Silence rushed back in, louder than before. Ethan sat down slowly. He hadn't realized how tightly he'd been clenching his fists until he opened them. Lily's breathing was shallow but steady. The machines hummed like distant insects. "You don't have to stay," Grace said quietly, though her eyes begged him to ignore the words. "I know," Ethan replied, "but I want to." Lily shifted slightly, wincing, then relaxed when Ethan adjusted her pillow. "Mom," she said, "can you get my notebook?" Grace reached into the bag by the chair and handed it over. Lily flipped through the pages, stopping near the back. "I started a new list," she said to Ethan. "It's called Good Things That Happened." He smiled softly. "What's on it?" "Number 1, she read, "someone carried me upstairs when I was tired. Number 2, Mom laughed yesterday. Like, really laughed." She paused, then added, "Number 3, Ethan came to the hospital." Grace pressed her lips together, turning away toward the window again. Ethan leaned back, staring at the ceiling tiles. He realized in how quietly his life had rearranged itself around this little girl. The garage, the bench, the stairs, none of it felt ordinary anymore. It all mattered now. Hours passed in fragments. A nurse came and went. Night settled fully outside. Grace dozed in the chair, exhaustion finally winning. Lily stayed awake longer than she should have, eyes tracing shapes in the dim light. "Ethan," she whispered. "Yeah. Do you think people can choose to be family?" The question landed gently but carried weight. "I think sometimes family is who shows up," he said. She smiled faintly. "I like that. Now it's your turn for a moment of honesty. Think of one small good thing you've done recently. Something kind, even if no one noticed. Share below, so this space can remember that goodness still exists. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs tonight. The following weeks blurred together in a rhythm of hospital visits and garage hours. Lily's good days were fewer, but when they came, she squeezed everything out of them. Stories, jokes, quiet talks that felt too big for her small frame. Ethan learned how to read the monitors without panicking. Grace learned how to sleep in short bursts. They became a strange, fragile trio, orbiting around Lily's bed. One afternoon, Lily asked to be taken upstairs again. "The stairs?" Grace asked, alarm flickering in her eyes. "Just once," Lily said. "I want to see it." The doctors agreed cautiously. Ethan carried her the same way he had that first night, careful, reverent. The stairwell smelled the same. The lights flickered the same. But Lily was different now, lighter still, her breath warm against his neck. When they reached the apartment, she asked him to set her down near the window. "Look," she said, pointing. The rain had returned, soft and steady, tapping against the glass. "It sounds like it remembers me." Ethan swallowed hard. "It does." She rested her head against his arm. "I'm glad my secrets are safe with you." Grace stood behind them, one hand over her mouth, watching her daughter take in the world like she was storing it carefully, piece by piece. Later that night, as Ethan drove home alone, the streets felt emptier than usual. He parked outside his apartment and didn't get out right away. For the first time in years, he prayed, not for miracles, but for gentleness, for Lily, for Grace, for whatever came next. At the hospital the next morning, the monitors beeped faster than before. Nurses moved with purpose. Grace's face went pale as snow. Ethan stood at the foot of the bed, heart pounding, as Lily's eyes fluttered open. She looked at him, calm in a way that terrified him. "I think this might be a big moment," she whispered. He leaned closer, afraid of missing even a breath. And then, with a strength that seemed to come from somewhere far beyond her body, Lily began to speak again, about a truth she had been holding back, one that would change everything Ethan thought he understood about why she had asked him to carry her that very first night. Lily's lips trembled, but her eyes stayed fixed on Ethan's, steady and certain, as if she'd already made peace with what she was about to say. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Even the machines seemed to quiet, as though they were listening too. "You know how I said I tell people my memories?" she whispered. "So they don't disappear?" Ethan nodded, barely breathing. "There's one I didn't write down," she continued, "because it was meant for you." Grace stepped closer, confusion and fear crossing her face. "Lily, sweetheart." "It's okay, Mom," Lily said softly. "I wanted to know." She turned back to Ethan. "The night I met you, I wasn't waiting for my mom." His heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I ran away from the hospital," Lily said, her voice thin but clear. "They said I needed another treatment. I was tired. I didn't want to be scared anymore." Ethan felt the words hit him like a slow wave, knocking the breath from his chest. "Lily, I walked until I couldn't," she said. "The stairs were the end. I thought if I couldn't climb them, maybe that meant I could stop." Grace gasped, covered her mouth, tears spilling freely now. "I saw you before you saw me," Lily continued. "You were fixing a car and humming. You looked safe." Ethan's knees weakened. He gripped the bed rail to steady himself. "I asked you to carry me because I needed to know," Lily whispered. "If someone would still lift me, even when I was too heavy." The room broke open then. Grace sobbed quietly, pressing her forehead to her daughter's hand. Ethan's vision blurred, his chest aching with a mix of guilt and awe. "If you hadn't," Lily said, "I don't know what I would have done." Ethan shook his head, voice thick. "You were never heavy." She smiled, the kind of smile that carried both sadness and relief. "I know that now. If that truth just reached somewhere deep in you, you don't have to explain it. Leave a red heart below. Sometimes one small sign is enough to say, 'I felt this too.'" The doctor entered then, urgency in his steps, but he slowed when he saw Lily's expression, peaceful, almost luminous. "We need to adjust her medication," he said gently. "Now." Grace kissed Lily's forehead, whispering words that cracked with love. Ethan stepped back, giving space, though every instinct screamed to stay closer. As the nurses worked, Lily's eyes never left Ethan. When things settled, she looked smaller than ever, swallowed by the bed, but her gaze was unwavering. "You carried me," she said quietly, "so I want to give you something too." He leaned in. "Anything. Promise me," she said, "that you'll keep stopping. For kids who wait. For people who look tired." His throat closed. He nodded once. "I promise." She sighed, a soft sound like relief. Grace held her hand, stroking her fingers, tears falling freely now. Hours later, the crisis eased. Lily slept, her chest rising and falling in a fragile rhythm. The doctor spoke to Grace in low tones by the door. Ethan watched from across the room, feeling both powerless and profoundly needed at the same time. That night, when Grace finally stepped out for coffee, Ethan stayed behind, sitting beside Lily. He noticed her notebook on the table and, after a moment's hesitation, opened it gently. On the last page, written in careful, uneven letters, were words that stole his breath. "If I get tired again, I hope someone carries me. If not with arms, then with love." He closed the notebook slowly, pressing his hand over it like a vow. Outside, dawn began to creep into the sky, pale and quiet. Ethan didn't know what the day would bring. He only knew that whatever came next, He would not walk away from it. Because some promises once made don't belong to time anymore. They belong to the people who need them most. Morning arrived without ceremony. No sunrise through wide windows, no birdsong, just a quiet shuffle of nurses changing shifts and a muted clink of medical trays. Ethan hadn't slept. He sat in the same chair, shoulders stiff, eyes fixed on Lily as if watching closely enough to keep her here. Grace returned with 2 cups of coffee, both untouched. She sat beside him, her movements slow, careful, like the world might shatter if she moved too fast. "I didn't know," she said suddenly, her voice hollow, "that she ran from the hospital that night. I didn't know she was that afraid." Ethan didn't answer right away. He knew that kind of guilt, the kind that claws at you even when you did everything you could. "She didn't want you to feel like you failed," he said gently. "She loves you too much for that." Grace's eyes filled again. "But I did fail. I should have been there. I should have held her tighter. I should have." "Grace," Ethan interrupted softly, "you're still here. That matters." She looked at him then, really looked at him. "Do you ever get angry?" she asked. "At life, at whatever decides these things." He thought of his father. Of all the years he'd spent believing abandonment was a choice made lightly. "I used to," he admitted. "I carried it like it was the only thing I had left. And now I'm learning that anger can't carry anyone," he said. "It just makes you tired." Grace nodded slowly, absorbing the words like medicine. Lily stirred then, her eyelashes fluttering. "You're both loud," she murmured. Relief crashed through the room. Grace laughed and cried at the same time, leaning over the bed. "We'll be quieter, I promise." Lily's eyes drifted to Ethan. "Did you read it?" He hesitated. "The notebook?" She nodded. "Yes," he said. "I did." "Good," she whispered. "Then you know." The day passed in fragile increments. Lily woke, slept, woke again. Each moment felt borrowed. A nurse brought coloring pencils, but Lily only drew one thing, a staircase, wide and bright, with 2 figures halfway up. As evening neared, Grace stepped out to speak with the doctor. Ethan stayed, listening to the steady beep of the monitor. Lily watched the ceiling for a long time before speaking again. "Ethan, I'm here. Do you think people can forgive without being asked?" The question cut deep. He thought of his father again, how long he'd waited for an apology that never came. "I think forgiveness is more about letting go," he said slowly. "Not about excusing, but about choosing not to be crushed." She considered that. "Then maybe you should forgive him." His chest tightened. "How you know about him?" She smiled faintly. "You get quiet when people leave the room, like you're holding something heavy." Ethan looked away, blinking hard. "I don't know if I can." Lily reached for his hand, weak but determined. "You carried me," she said. "Maybe you can put that down too. Before everything that comes next, I want to ask you something honestly. Could you forgive someone who hurt you deeply, even if they never said sorry? Type forgive if you think you could, or never if that pain would be too much to release." The doctor returned with news that wasn't hopeful, but wasn't final either. More waiting, more uncertainty. Grace thanked him quietly, her face composed in a way that only comes after grief has exhausted itself. That night, Lily asked Ethan to tell her story. Not about cars, not about the garage. "Tell me about when you were little," she said. He hesitated, then spoke. About waiting by the window, about learning to cook box dinners, about realizing, too young, that adults were just people who got scared and left. Lily listened without interruption. When he finished, she squeezed his hand. "I don't think you were forgotten," she said. "I think you were being saved for later." Tears slid down his face silently. For the first time, he didn't wipe them away. Outside the hospital, night deepened. Somewhere between the hum of machines and the sound of Lily's breathing, Ethan felt something loosen inside him. A knot he'd carried for decades. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time, he felt ready to face it, whatever it was. And just before sleep took Lily again, she whispered something that would echo in Ethan's heart long after the lights dimmed. Words that would shape the way he lived from that moment forward. Lily's voice was barely more than breath. "Promise me you'll notice people," she whispered. The quiet ones. The ones who wait. Ethan leaned close, his forehead touching hers. I promise, he said, the word carrying more weight than anything he'd ever sworn before. She smiled, her eyes closing again, and this time sleep came deeper. Grace sat on the other side of the bed, watching every rise and fall of Lily's chest like it was a fragile miracle. The room felt suspended, caught between hope and something darker, something neither of them wanted to name. Days passed in this suspended state. Lily had moments of clarity, moments of drifting. Sometimes she laughed at nothing. Sometimes she stared out the window, fingers tracing invisible patterns on the blanket. Ethan kept his promise. He noticed everything. The way Grace folded Lily's sweater and unfolded it again, hands shaking. The way nurses softened their voices when they entered the room. The way Lily's eyes followed the door whenever footsteps passed, as if measuring how much time was left. One afternoon, the doctor asked Grace and Ethan to step into the hallway. The walls were too white, the lights too bright. We're reaching a turning point, the doctor said carefully. Her body is very tired. Grace nodded, her face calm in a way that felt unreal. Ethan felt his chest tighten, but he stayed quiet, present. When they returned, Lily sensed it immediately. It's okay, she said before either of them spoke. You don't have to protect me from the truth. Grace knelt beside the bed, tears falling freely now. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Lily reached up, brushing her mother's cheek with trembling fingers. You gave me everything, she said, even when you thought it wasn't enough. That night, Lily asked to hear the rain again. Ethan cracked the window, just enough for the sound to slip in. It was gentle, steady like breathing. I think I'm not scared anymore, Lily said softly. Ethan swallowed. Why not? Because I was carried, she replied. All the way. Grace lay beside her on the bed, careful not to disturb the wires. Ethan sat close, one hand resting on the mattress, anchoring himself to the moment. If you believe love still wins, even when it hurts, write amen in the comments. Let's fill this space with hope. Somewhere, someone scrolling right now might need to see it. Near dawn, Lily stirred one last time. Her eyes opened, clear and focused. She looked at Grace, then at Ethan. Don't forget the stairs, she whispered. I won't, Ethan promised. Her breathing slowed. The machines continued their steady rhythm, then changed. Grace's cry broke the quiet, raw and unstoppable. Nurses rushed in, voices low and urgent, but Ethan already knew. He stood frozen, watching as the world shifted into something unrecognizable. Later, after the room emptied, after the machines were silenced, Ethan helped Grace gather Lily's things. The notebook, the drawings, the sweater. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air felt painfully clean. The funeral was small, quiet. People Lily had never met stood beside people who loved her deeply. Ethan carried the notebook in his jacket pocket, like a sacred thing. In the weeks that followed, Ethan changed. He fixed cars the same way, but he looked at people differently. He noticed the kids waiting outside stores. He listened longer. He stopped more often. One evening, a little boy stood at the bottom of the garage stairs, staring up at them, backpack slipping off one shoulder. I'm tired, the boy said. Ethan didn't hesitate. He knelt down, smiling softly. I've got you. As he lifted the child, feeling that familiar weight, Ethan understood something fully for the first time. Some people don't stay long, but what they give can last forever. And as he took the first step upward, he carried more than a child. He carried a promise. The boy's arms looped loosely around Ethan's neck, trusting without knowing why. His backpack bumped gently against Ethan's side as they climbed one step at a time. The stairwell was the same flickering light, same smell of dust and oil. But Ethan wasn't the same man who had stood here months ago, frozen by a quiet request and a whispered promise. You're heavier than you look, Ethan said softly, not as a complaint, but with warmth. The boy laughed. My mom says that too. At the top, Ethan set him down gently. The boy grinned, waved once, and disappeared toward the hallway where his mother waited. It was an ordinary moment. That's what made it extraordinary. Ethan stayed there for a second longer, hand resting on the railing. He felt it then, not pain exactly, not anymore, but a steady warmth. Like something fragile had been set down carefully inside his chest and allowed to live. Life didn't pause for grief. The garage stayed busy. Bills still came. Some nights were harder than others. There were moments, quiet ones usually, when Lily's absence pressed in so sharply it stole his breath. But those moments didn't break him anymore. They shaped him. Grace came by sometimes. She sat on the bench Lily used to love, holding the notebook in her lap. They didn't always talk. They didn't have to. She would have liked a day, Grace said once, watching Ethan help an elderly man with a flat tire. She loved watching you help people. Ethan smiled, eyes stinging. She taught me how. Grace nodded. She did. One afternoon, Ethan finally did what Lily had asked him without ever saying it outright. He found his father's old number, written on a scrap of paper he'd carried for years. His thumb hovered over the call button for a long time. When the call went unanswered, Ethan didn't feel the familiar anger rise, just a quiet release. "I forgive you," he whispered to no one and to himself. And in that moment, something heavy finally slipped from his shoulders. Years passed. The garage became known for more than repairs. People said the mechanic there listened, that he noticed when you were tired, that he never rushed kids on the stairs. Sometimes late in the evening, when the shop was quiet and the rain returned, Ethan would hear Lily's laughter in his memory, not haunting, not sad, but light, like a reminder. He kept the notebook safe. On the last page, beneath Lily's words, he eventually added his own. "I kept stopping. I kept noticing. You were right. If this story reached your heart, please don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for a video, not for a channel, but for a little girl who was tired and still chose to trust. One simple click can be your way of saying, you mattered, I felt you, because some stories aren't meant to be watched and forgotten. They're meant to be carried, just like she was.